Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Today is Tuesday, April 16th, 2024, and the board meeting is now called to order. It is 6:02. All board members are present. We have Director Harnish, Second Vice Chair Richardson, and Director Chandragiri joining us via Zoom this evening. All board members and student advisors are present. I'd like to get us started by handing it off to Student Advisor Hersik Gutierrez to read the land acknowledgement.
Okay. We are gathered today on the land of the Kalapuya, who are represented by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians. The relationship between the Kalapuya people and this land continues unbroken to this day, and we offer gratitude for the land and for the generations present and past who have stewarded the land since time immemorial. We respectfully acknowledge and honor past, present, and future Native American and Indigenous students and staff of Salem-Keizer Public Schools. We invite you to join us in honoring these ancestral grounds and celebrating the resilience and strength of all Native American and Indigenous people.
Thank you. You'll stand and for the Pledge of Allegiance. And just a quick check, Superintendent, do we have any modifications to the agenda?
We do not.
We'll actually go ahead and jump straight into public comment this evening. We're able to take the 10 people who submitted names. So as usual, participants will have 3 minutes and the timer will be on screen from the red to yellow and then, from the green to yellow and then red at the 1 second mark. We do ask that you be mindful of your pace for our interpreters who are here with us live, and then also our Spanish interpreters. And we'll jump right in with Brian Zauber-Reed, and next would be Sandra Hernandez.
Good afternoon. Good evening. My name is Brian Zauber-Reed, and I am speaking as an individual. Today I stand before you with a request for our students and our educators and the future of our education in our community. As you navigate the challenging landscape of budgetary decisions, I urge you to reconsider the profound impact of cutting student-facing jobs. Our students are the heartbeat of the education system. They rely on the support and the guidance and the dedicated professionals to help them navigate the academic journey. The cutting student-facing jobs not only will jeopardize this quality of education that they receive, but also undermines the commitment to their success. Student-facing jobs are the front line of our educational system. From teachers, counselors, librarians, educational assistants, bus drivers, all of them. These individuals play a critical role in shaping the educational experience of our students. They provide mentorship, support, and inspiration, laying the foundation of our lifelong learning and success. The impact of the student-facing job extends far beyond academic achievement. These professionals serve as mentors, advocates, role models for our students. They provide emotional support, guidance, a sense of belonging, creating, nurturing an environment where students can thrive. Let's talk about equity. Cutting student-facing jobs disproportionately affects vulnerable populations. Students who rely on additional support services such as special education, multi-language learners, all particularly vulnerable and to the consequences of the staff reductions. We must ensure that all students have access to the resources and support they need to succeed. By preserving student-facing jobs, we invest in the future of our community. Education empowers students to become engaged citizens, contributing to social, economic, and cultural fabric of our society. The success of our students is intrinsically linked to the prosperity and the well-being of our community as a whole. In conclusion, I urge you all to prioritize the preservation of the student-facing jobs in our educational system. These professionals are the lifeblood of our schools, and the impact will reverberate far beyond the classroom. Let us stand together in support of our students, our educators, and the future of our education in our community. Thank you.
Sandra Hernandez and then Kelly Young.
Hello, my name is Sandra. I have been working with students in this district for the past 12 years through various after-school programs and nonprofit organizations. My expertise is in case management, cultural and gender-affirming resource navigation, and youth-led advocacy. Most of these years, I have spent time working with the students that are most often dehumanized by punitive policies and practices and pushed into the carceral system. $70 million in budget cuts to an already underfunded school system will be detrimental to all students, but especially the students already pushed into the margins. That is why I urge you to prioritize funding programs that disrupt the school-to-prison and deportation pipeline. Bicultural and bilingual educators, bicultural resource navigation, and other support programs that connect students to important resources. Culturally and gender-affirming mental health support, healthcare centers, arts, music, and sports. All of these are programs that can serve as protective factors so that our students have the capacity to focus on their education. What will not help during this time is investing in more systemic policing, including weapon detectors and more security. Weapon detectors are a Band-Aid to an issue that needs to be addressed at the root cause. Some of you, school board members, have taken the liberty to go on social media and publicly state that we need more to fund police and metal detectors at this time, while acting as though you support equity. Funding policing while cutting 400 jobs and reducing resources is not equity. It is a racist solution rooted in the fear of a majority student of color population. Systemic racism can be upheld by anyone regardless of our racial or ethnic background. So I urge you to please invest in programs that support the root causes of educational disconnection. I know our school district is not the only system in charge of our students' lives, but it is an important one. It is at the center. It is closest to our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Young and then Kimberly Reed-Sauber.
Good evening, Board and Superintendent. My name is Kelly Young, and I have children and grandchildren attending schools now in the district. I also have close connections with teachers and staff. My children have been a part of the district for over 30 years. I have always been a volunteer and enjoyed visiting with the students. I always would like to help the ones that might not get the amount of attention at home or at school that I felt they needed. To say that I am concerned with the cuts is an understatement. As a mom and a Meemaw, I worry about the kids and how this will affect them. I also worry how this will affect the teachers and staff. The class sizes are too big for kids to get the individual attention they need and deserve. With the economy the way it is, both parents are working to make ends meet, and then the kids fend for themselves. Our teachers spend more waking hours with our kids than some parents get to spend with their own children. I also am concerned with how these cuts are going to affect our community. These teachers and staff that are being cut are our friends, neighbors, and community. When they get told they are cut, how is that going to affect their family? Most of them have kids that attend our schools. Do we have a plan to support them and their families? These kids are our future. We eventually will need the teachers to come back as our district continues to grow. Years back, legislators said that they were going to support the education. They voted more funds. Where's that money going? Are they not giving us more because they see the misspending? I believe we do need to get the administrators out of the office and into the schools daily to see what our teachers are dealing with. Between the 3 superintendents, it is almost $700,000. That is not even including benefits. Wow, that would keep approximately 12 teachers paid. Could maybe we cut there? I also feel that we need to touch these kids' lives at an early age to help keep them in the right direction. How are we going to do that with no supports and limited teachers? I am thankful that you have asked for comments and also time with the community discussions. But like always, the district has made the decision, and no matter what any community member says, they will do what they want to. Thank you.
Thank you. Kimberly Rezaber and then Alex S.
Buenas tardes, comunidad de Salem-Keizer. Me llamo Kimberly Rezaber, ella. Soy maestra de Ciencias Naturales en el programa de lenguaje dual en Parish Middle School. Soy miembro del sindicato de maestros y hablo de parte mía. Les hablo hoy para explicar la desconfianza que muchos tenemos en el liderazgo de nuestro distrito. Primero, porque durante los últimos años, la población estudiantil de Salem-Keizer ha
In the
ido
last years,
disminuyendo, pero a la misma
population
vez se han ido
Keizer,
aumentando los costos y el personal
we
de la
apologize from the
administración central.
that we're having an
Para
echo.
comparar este presupuesto escolar con uno casero, cuando hay menos dinero en mi casa,
When
no
there's
compramos casa
less
nueva,
money
carro
in the
nuevo,
house,
no hacemos fiesta ni invitamos visita.
we don't throw a party or
Cuando hay
invite
menos
guests.
que administrar, ¿por qué tenemos más administradores? Esto
Why
no da
do we have
confianza
more
en su
administrators now?
financiera. También nos prometieron que iban a cortar todo lo posible
We were also
en la
promised that
administración
you will cut
central antes de
down
tocar a las escuelas. Sin embargo, vemos que
on
hay
anything possible
unos
before
cuantos
reaching
cortes
the schools.
administrativos, pero muchos cortes muy importantes en las escuelas.
But there are many important
Y sus
cuts
concesiones salariales no nos engañan.
at schools.
Con solo el aumento de salario que recibió cada uno el año pasado,
Only with the raise of wages that
podríamos
each of you
salvar
received
una o
last
más
year,
posiciones de servicio a estudiantes.
we
Creo que
could
sí
provide
puede
many more
cortar
services
más
to our
entre la
students.
administración. En vez de decir, miren qué bueno que soy, que este
Instead
año
of
no voy a
saying, look at
tomar
how
otro
good I am,
aumento, ¿qué tal si devuelven ese aumento al presupuesto?
what if you return that
Esto no
raise
da
to the
confianza en
budgets?
su corazón de servicio. Los documentos financieros del 2022
The financial
dicen que hubo
statements
una
for
reserva sin
2022
gastar de 110 millones de
had
dólares.
some
Dólares que no se gastaron en
unspent
servicios a
reserves that were
estudiantes.
not
Eso equivale a más de un 21%
used.
del presupuesto. La
This
Asociación
equals more
de
than
Juntas
21%
Directivas
of our
en Oregón
budget.
recomienda tan solo un 5 o 6%. La
And the
retención de
recommendations are
tanto dinero
at least 5
no
to
da confianza en
6%.
sus prioridades. Muchos de los cortes propuestos en
Many
las
of
escuelas
the
cortan
cuts
servicios a los
proposed
niños más necesitados, los de educación
are
especial, los que
undermining the
tienen problemas
services
de
of
salud,
special education
los bilingües
students,
nacientes, los niños transgénero y nuestros niños de color.
transgender children,
¿Cómo es posible
and our
que no protejan
children.
a los
How is it
más
possible that
vulnerables entre
they are not
nosotros?
protected?
Esta falta
I
de
apologize from the
interés en
interpreting
nuestros
booth
niños
that
no
I
nos da
was hearing an
confianza en
echo
su
and couldn't
sentido
hear the
de
speaker.
deber. Aún hay tiempo. Vuelvan, por favor, a sus calculadoras.
We still have
Nos
time.
presentan
Go
con
back
algo
to your
mejor.
calculators and do the math better. Again, I apologize from the interpreting
Gracias.
booth, but
After
I can
Alex,
hear
we have
myself.
Danechka Otero Serrano, who will be joining us on Zoom.
Can you guys hear me? Perfect. Hi, my name is Alex. I've been here so many times. I'm pretty sure you guys know my name. I'm a former student from North Salem High School, McNary High School, different middle schools around the school that I've been here in the school district. I've gone to the Salem-Keizer School District pretty much my whole life. And when living in housing, obviously, that tends to push you around all the different schools around Salem. So I had my fair share of lack of funding, schools that have more funding than others, and seeing that the difference between those two. But that's really important to acknowledge, right? We know our schools are underfunded. Our schools are already underfunded by $100 million, and now they're being underfunded by $170 million. And that's a lot to take in, right? Our schools are hurting. Our students have been hurting for way beyond this, right? There was redlining in our communities before where there were schools that were very extremely underfunded due to taxes and the redlining. And we've seen the impacts of that. Our students were failed. The graduation rates were low. Our students were hurting, and their success was falling down. And that's what's happening right now today. I see many of students not only not wanting to attend school and not seeing the worthy enough to attend school because of the lack of funding, the lack of resources, the lack of want to attend these schools. And that says a lot about us, right? And I think that it's really irking to hear that we are still having conversations around weapon detectors in our schools. We know weapon detectors don't work. We know we don't have the money for weapon detectors. We know we need to put more preventatives into our schools. Weapon detectors do not prevent anything. If we're talking about, when we're talking in the direction of like, making sure our students are safe and making sure that they have a safe and welcoming school district in their schools. We really have to look at our policies that we have in place that you all voted with, the policies that you have put in place, the safe and welcoming schools. If you look into that and the equity lens that you all have placed in your school district, this goes bypasses so much. It's not safe and welcoming to our students. It is not equitable to put this in our schools. Our schools need more counselors. Our students are hurting. Mental health is very extreme. Our students have been through a post-pandemic, and a pandemic that continues today. It doesn't end. And I think that's unfair for people on this board to think that it's important to look at their personal views, because we really have to think about this, right? You all are not here for your personal views. You guys are here as representative of community. Our students are saying no to metal detectors. Our teachers are saying no to metal detectors. Our community members are saying no to weapon detectors. And those are who you represent, not yourself or your personal opinions. And I think that's really what you guys need to take today, is that this isn't about personal opinions and this isn't about how you feel. It's about what our community needs and what our community is asking for, and that's no on weapon detectors.
All right, we have Danechka online via Zoom, and then Kelsey Miller would be up next.
Thank you, everyone. Chair Guzman Ortiz, Superintendent Castañeda, members of the board. My name is Danechka Serrano. I represent the Salem-Keizer Coalition for Equality and the amazing parents and family members we serve in our community. First and foremost, it is incredibly hard to see this level of reduction. What a hard job you have as a superintendent, the superintendent team, and board members. I am really grateful for your hard work during these tough times, for including all voices, and for keeping us informed at every step of the way. We know these reductions of this magnitude will certainly impact students. All students, we see in the reductions you have prioritized maintaining dual language programs and mental and behavioral health to the greatest extent possible. We thank you for this care around programs that benefit our Latino families that have been so underserved for so long. I know you are taking action on reductions in force, and while necessary, I hope you will continue to prioritize our bilingual, bicultural administrators, teachers, and support staff. We know you can legally and contractually do this, and it is essential to the progress we made in the past 9 years to not lose ground. You know, the demographic of our Latino students and families are still underrepresented in the administrative staff and teachers in the school. Our students and families need bilingual educators to help students and families feel seen, heard, and welcome in our schools. When students feel seen, heard, and welcome, they can engage academically. Capable bilingual and bicultural educators are imperative to achieve school academic goals. Again, I thank you, and please know the coalition and the parents are with you during this really hard time. Thank you.
Gracias, Anishka. Kelsey Miller, and then Cindy G.
Good evening. My name is Kelsey Miller. I'm a middle school science teacher here in the district, and as a longtime Salem resident, I'm speaking as an individual tonight. First, I'd like to thank the board for your discussion and questions around the reduction in force process. I hope you've had time to truly process what you've learned in an effort to make an informed decision tonight. I want to take a moment to reemphasize something I hope we all agree on. The district, this board, and previous and current cabinet leadership have backed us into the dark financial corner we're in right now. Decision-making that happened at the highest levels of our district, recommended by our cabinet and budget committees, and ultimately approved by this board, have led us to where we are right now. Regardless of the inadequate funding at the state level, the choices and decisions made in this room and in the upper levels of our district are what got us here. Not the decisions of licensed staff, not the decisions of our students, not the decisions of our families. These proposed cuts disproportionately impact licensed staff, most of whom are in our schools interacting with students daily. And once again, as often happens in public education, the district is attempting to balance the budget on the backs of educators and students. As I've become more and more familiar with the processes of our district and this board over the years, I'm resigned to accept that once resolutions like this reach this point in the process, the decision is usually already made. These times of public comment are simply a formality. In a short while, this board will take a vote and likely accept this resolution, and rather than reject it and demand our district leaderships do better. So with that in mind, I challenge this board and our district leadership, all here tonight and watching online, to ask yourselves what happens next. As a proud member of SKEA and the Oregon Education Association, I know firsthand that our organizations have been lobbying for education dollars in this state for decades. Just a few years ago, in fact, educators from all over the state marched on the steps of the Capitol building downtown and secured additional funding through the Student Investment Account. Last year, the efforts of OEA helped secure the highest public education funding package in our state's history, $10.2 billion. Yet the lack of oversight and accountability in our own district, how our district uses these dollars, meant it still was not enough. If you are going to continue asking for our help, lobbying for better funding, then you must be responsible to us with oversight and accountability on how that funding is used. The future of public education in Salem-Keizer is in your hands. Our students, family, and our entire community are dependent on you to make responsible choices and move forward together in a new season, hopefully with higher funding. I challenge all of you to do what you often say, put our kids first.
Thank you, Kelsey. Cindy G, and then Andrea Garibay.
Hello. Hi, my name is Cindy. I work with youth. I've been working with youth for a really long time. I mainly do one-on-one work with youth out here in the community for many years. Youth have endlessly and tirelessly advocated for themselves and their communities that have spent all their lives here in Salem, and that they know Salem as if they were the back of their hand. They know the good, the bad, and the ugly here in this city. Youth have poured hours of work that often goes unnoticed or unappreciated, but rather gets criminalized and targeted instead. And they fully know the importance of the work that they're doing because it is not just about self-advocacy, but it's for their peers that will come after them, and for the little ones in elementary school and all of that. They're the ones that walk the hallways every day, that feel what it's like to have to walk the hallways of an oppressive institution. Youth have been advocating for years, trying to get more investments on mental health, catered to BIPOC students who go through systemic policing, criminalization within their schools, outside of schools. It never leaves them. We must invest in programs and solutions that get to the root of the problem, not a performative solution that caters to a privileged lens. We need more teachers that understand us, not hyper-surveillance that leads us to carceral agendas and a very real life-changing repercussions, like in not investing in security and especially in metal detectors. I know you all did a survey trying to figure out what was important to the community when it came to budget cuts, because there was a lot of budget cuts this year. I think it's like a historical, if people don't know, people are watching, it's like a historical underfunded year. But I'll let you know something if you all don't know. A couple years ago, youth in their community, youth that are directly impacted by criminalization, also did a survey where they asked their peers what they lacked in school, and some didn't even have nurses on the ground. Just think of that. So the youth feel it, the teachers feel it. We need more investments that will get to the root of the problem, and we do not need weapon detectors in our schools.
Thank you. Andrea Garibay, and lastly, we have Jennifer Miranda.
Hola, buenas tardes. Yo soy Andrea Garibay, asesora de graduación en la North Salem High School. Good evening. I am Andrea Garibay, a graduation coach at North Salem High School. During last night's board meeting, I feel it was made to seem as if graduation coaches are dispensable due to the support that is offered at high school levels. We recognize the valuable work that the community resource specialists in the equity department do for our kids, but they are spread thin. They work K through 12 and are assigned by ethnicity. Credit recovery, summer school, senior support, licensed staff, college and career coaches, avid teachers, and counselors are all valid systems of supports that we have in our schools. However, when attendance is low and students aren't coming to school, who communicates with the families? Who's knocking on home doors? Who's mailing out letters? Who's letting families know that their students have been dropped because they haven't came to school for 10 days? Who is getting them immediate food boxes? Who is doing the gentle handoff when we refer them to a GED program or they need to have alternative education and go to Roberts? Those are all the graduation coaches here in the Salem-Keizer School District. The importance of a graduation coach runs deep, and our end goal is the same as everybody else's: get our kids across the stage and get them their diploma. We're a bridge to connecting our students and families to their counselors, teachers, tutoring, alternative education, and that's just to name a few. We are out in the community, knocking on doors, visiting our students where they're comfortable. A lot of the students are holding a type of trauma when it comes to being in a school space. So it's important for us to navigate that and go and visit them where they feel safe. The budget's often brought up. Money's tight. Money's always gonna be tight. The question I want to ask the district board members is, why are you willing to make cuts to those people who are in building every day, making connections with our students and our families, and not to the positions within the district who don't directly work with our students or our families? I understand times are tough, but I myself am a product of the Salem-Keizer School District McKay class of 2013. And back in my day, people didn't want to work for the district to make money or to have the 6 figures. Back in my day, people were working within the district to help our students, to help them be successful, which is what led me to come back after I graduated and got my bachelor's, was to come back and educate our minority families on the importance of education. We don't have to be stuck working in agriculture our whole lives. We need to be breaking these barriers, and to do so, we need to be represented within schools. So for me to have students tell me like, oh, I didn't know I could do this with my life, I haven't had someone like you, I'm doing my job because I want them to feel represented and be seen. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Jennifer?
Yes, that's me. Okay. So my name is Jennifer Miranda, and I am currently a graduation coach at North Salem High School. I am here to bring clarity upon some things that were mentioned regarding graduation coaches last night. I appreciate what was said, but cannot speak on behalf of all graduation coaches as a whole, as the district board members did. In the Salem-Keizer district, North Salem High School is an underrepresented school with critical needs, particularly in areas such as graduation and attendance rates among students. Graduation coaches are the middleman between counselors and our administration. We are available to students 8 hours a day and on call for parents when needed due to our demographics at North. This means we often stay as late as needed. We identify Tier 3 students who are at risk and address any barriers, whether it's mental health issues, academic struggles, family problems, and the list goes on. We are the middleman to overcome these obstacles. As a Latina, I understand how difficult it is to ask for help or to be vulnerable, because in our cultures, that may be seen as weak. I am here to provide individualized support, encouragement, goal setting, action plans, and class performance tracking. We truly play a crucial role in supporting students through their educational journey, which brings me to the attendance rate. Coming back from the pandemic, our dropout rate at North was at 8.46. And after being able to work in person this last year's number dropped to 4.5. This was a significant change, specifically a 3.96% difference, due to us being able to make 140 plus calls to make to families, conduct home visits of those calls that we made, to then connecting with the student all over again, and reintroducing them to the education system once again. Sorry, I missed my thought, which includes cross-collaborating with counselors, teachers, and administration. A lot of preventative work was done and still is being implemented, and this is only with one graduation coach. So imagine how many more calls my team now of 3, which includes Ms. Andrea, makes as a whole each month. This all shows how needed we are, and when the day comes that graduation coaches are being cut, who will take on all of this work we do? I truly hope that this brings awareness to the immense contributions we bring to the Salem-Keizer School District and what graduation coaches at other schools are implementing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our public comment section. That's everyone who we had signed up for comment this evening. For anyone who was not able to comment tonight, we do encourage you to send your comments in writing to the board as well. And with that, we move over to our action portion of the agenda, which is adoption of the resolution. We do appreciate, again, just want to say thank you for all of the comments, and I know we heard from some folks yesterday as well, as we had a conversation around this and had an opportunity to ask more questions around the proposals and hear from the district team as well as a breakdown of those. With this, we'll move into the action portion of the agenda. I'll take a motion and then we can enter discussion.
I move that we adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Director Chandragiri. Do we have a second?
Yes, I second that.
Thank you, Director Hudson. We'll open it up to discussion and take comments or questions also for Superintendent Castañeda and team, if there was anything that folks wanted to get additional clarity from yesterday's conversation and additional check-ins.
Chair, could we take a brief break?
Yeah. I have a request for a break, 5 minutes. We'll go ahead and take a 5-minute break and then return to discussion. All right, thank you everyone for that quick break. We'll go ahead and jump back in. So we'll resume with the discussion on the current motion, which is the adoption of the resolution 2023-24-7, which is the reduction in force. So we'll open it up to questions, discussion. Yeah, Student Advisor Papas, jump in.
I guess I was wondering in relation to like last night's conversation we had at the board meeting, how are we deciding what jobs to cut? Because I know some schools we have a higher need for some positions than other schools. So how are we like deciding that?
Thank you. That's an important and complex question, so we'll break it into a few pieces. First, for those of you who are watching or joined us last night, you'll see that we talked about three big factors that we looked at. So one was looking to the degree possible, protect the board's goals, the 5 areas. Those 5 areas are really expansive, and so when we say protect to the degree possible, we don't believe or suggest that we protected them in their entirety. The second was paying attention to the significant community feedback we received over the course of the last 8 months, and that identified some key areas that across many stakeholders there was agreement that those services mattered greatly. And then the third was a review of the equity lens, which I think gets closest to your question. And that really demands of us a review of the degree to which the services that we are considering for reduction have a disproportionate impact on traditionally marginalized communities or students. And it includes a series of questions underneath that. The way that we built this package is first with just enormous regret and a sense of heavy responsibility. We have heard from commenters tonight, and we feel in our own hearts this same feeling that these reductions are not right. This is not the right time. This is not the right place. And at the same time, we do not have enough money in our system to continue as we are. We need to work to change that. That is urgent work for us, but it is not money we have now, nor is it money we will have next year. That leaves us with no good options. I think your specific question in some ways was about how it impacts different schools. And we have worked closely with and looked closely at all of the unique factors in our schools. And as we built out this recommended reduction package, have worked to protect our most marginalized and most complex schools to the maximum degree possible. There too, though, I have to say, it does not mean anyone is entirely protected, but it does mean that our most complex schools receive less deep cuts to the degree that we were able to do that.
Well, yeah, I guess kind of similar to what Linda was talking about, like the factors that the board makes or the district makes with reducing the positions. Is this something that like the district as a whole decides, or do each individual school, like do they make the decisions just based off the recommendations?
Yeah, this is one of the most common and pressing questions we're hearing in our community right now. And I want to clarify as I answer it that this is the answer about how the process works after a decision is made around tonight's resolution. It is driven by contract, and it is driven by statute mostly. So the way that this will work in very brief summary, very brief, we could spend the entire evening on this, is that once the final numbers are identified, The process of making the decisions about exactly where and exactly who are managed not at a school level, but they're managed through a system that is already defined in our collective bargaining agreements. And that means that it's not me making the decision either. It's driven by seniority and other factors in our contract and in our state statute and in our board policy. This is, I would say, the most common question we're getting right now from building-based staff, from our administrators, and to a certain degree from our community. It is not individual principals sitting down and making all of those decisions for each building. It's a whole system going through this in one unified way.
Thank you, student advisors, for your questions. I see Director Harnish and then Director Chandagiri.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much, Chair and Superintendent, for it's been a sobering meeting last night and today to listen to not only the proposal for the reduction in force, but also just the really thoughtful community participation, and I just really appreciate that. And I really, really appreciate the process that the district has taken to embark on this. I have heard from many community leaders how appreciative and thankful they are that this has been done with a real openness and transparency, and really seeking to not only get input, but to also communicate with the community at large all the way through. Certainly doesn't make it any easier, but I do think that this will help us as we move through a rebuilding. So I just wanted to go on the record as saying my appreciation for the district and staff and leadership in putting this together, and the thoughtfulness that went through. I think I don't have a specific question per se. I think it's mostly around moving forward and just sort of putting a placeholder in how we can, as a board and then also as a community, can step in to support our school districts. These are going to be really tough and challenging times on the culture of our schools and the organization as a whole. So we need to be standing ready to be able to support our schools and our staff remaining, and then also supporting staff who are impacted by this action. And then also as us moving forward into thinking about our advocacy positions that we hold. I know that's not pertains to the motion at hand, but I just wanted to go on record saying that. And also really appreciate the comments that were mentioned before by our union representatives about how hopefully we can partner together on that moving forward. So again, thank you for this really challenging time, but doing so with real thoughtfulness. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Harnish. Director Chandagiri, if you want to jump in with your question.
Well, I really want to say thank you very much, and I'm glad I got the connectivity. I apologize, I wasn't able to connect yesterday. This is a very difficult and hard decision. I'm not going to repeat, but it has been very, very difficult. But as it appears, it's necessary. And I appreciate the thoughtfulness we went in. The public comment by Ms. Chelsea Miller really brought kind of, this Chelsea, Ms. Miller, the question that you brought up in the public comment has been kind of replaying in my head as a board director for a very, very long time. As a board, what did we miss and why did we miss and how did we arrive at this? And, and I'm just left with many things, but, unfortunately, it has kind of reached a level of urgency that this budget deficit shouldn't push us into a financial insolvency position. So there is that. The ESSER was sunsetting. But moving forward, it is important as a board, we kind of do some kind of root cause analysis to learn from this and say, how do we think in terms of sustainable option? The way I see the COVID and pandemic, etc., was like a stress test that just brought forward these challenges and made it so hard to kind of keep our eyes on some of the end fund balance and those policies. So I think as it is very difficult time, yet it has become so necessary that we take steps now and start working towards learning and having some kind of sustainable model, whether it is advocating for Oregon legislature to really pay attention to the equity which is enshrined in our Oregon Constitution, educational equity, Article 8, Clause 8, or coming close to the quality education model funding, or some kind of sustainable plan. Otherwise, it was this anemic financing would have eventually led to this problem that we are seeing. It has been for too long, from 1999 onwards, not matching the quality education model set up by the legislature itself. This is a matter of time, just like small districts went through Silver Falls, etc. So I really appreciate our superintendent really educating our board, educating the community in a very transparent manner, and kind of head-on tackle some of this very difficult and complex issue. So thank you very much. It is difficult. There's not one person that I know, including my colleagues, who feel comfortable with this. Yet it's like a rock in a hard place, and it's a very, very difficult decision that I will be making as a board director to support this resolution. Because on the other hand, it's unthinkable to end up in a financial insolvency situation for a big district like this. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Chandragiri. I just wanted to check, Superintendent, if there was anything you wanted to circle back on. I know there's been important comments, so I just want to make sure that we're in an open discussion still.
Yes, thank you. I do have just one addition to the very common question, how did we get here? We heard it from Director Chandragiri and a little bit from public comment. The one addition I want to make is that there is a very real reason that across Oregon we're seeing multiple school districts suddenly moving in this direction. And I want to emphasize suddenly. Two things have happened at the same time, and the fact that they happened at the same time created a disruption in factors that previously were very predictable. The first thing that happened is that there was a pretty grave miscalculation in the cost of personnel increases in this biennium. No one in this room did that. It was so far off that even for Salem-Keizer, if that had been correct by itself, we would be able to avoid most of this reduction in force. No one in this room did that. And no one in this room could have predicted the way that things played out in this biennium. Those are new factors, not just to Salem-Keizer, but to all of the districts in Oregon. Portland is predicting a $70 million RIF next year. I'm sorry, $7 million reduction next year, and that's only year 2 of 3 years of reduction. So that is one really important feature that I just want to bring into the room. And then a second one is that the pandemic, we heard it from public speakers, technically, scientifically, it ended. Socially, emotionally, medically, culturally, economically, it did not. It's still playing out every day, and we're learning what people need. No factor could have predicted that, and no factor is accurately predicting the complexity of need. So I offer those only to provide an additional context about the moment that we're in and the ways that we got here.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I know we've had many questions, and it's been difficult. Question from Director Nahos Pressy.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to point us to like the actual resolution, and it states that the Salem-Keizer Public Schools Board of Directors declares that it must lay off multiple staff positions, including up to, and so up to 15 administrative positions, up to 239 licensed positions, and 138.75 classified positions. So I was just wondering what factors would cause the size of this reduction in force to change? Like, and when would we know the amount of the positions reduced?
One of the great things about budget crises and reductions in force is that they don't tend to happen very often, once every decade or so. One of the things that makes it hard about it is that every time it happens, once a decade, we all have to educate ourselves again on how it works. So if passed tonight, this allows the district to begin planning for a reduction in our workforce of up to those numbers. Or said another way, our reduction cannot exceed the numbers in the resolution or in the proportions represented in the accompanying package. However, what can happen, and I will go further and say what I predict will happen, is that those numbers will be modified over the course of the coming weeks. They cannot be modified up, but they may be modified slightly down. And I think your question was, what are the factors? The factors are that we need to get first drafts of school schedules done. School schedules are the carriers of almost all of the important content that helps us know things about ratio, about school size, about staffing needs. And that is what allows us to test our own projections against a much more firm reality about the upcoming school year. If some of these projections that we have included here and have presented yesterday and today prove to be wrong, then we will decrease the size of the RIF in order to do things like, for example, protect elementary ratio. If we were a couple of FTE wrong on that, we will fix that. These are the things that have to be tested out with as much accuracy as possible. They need to be right. And those are the factors that could create an adjustment to these numbers.
Thank you. Thank you for the hand up.
Thank you. Director Chandragiri, do you want to jump in again?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate, not only programmatically and statutorily, but I appreciate the focus on the dual language. This question has come up, the dual language immersion and CTEC programs, etc., and how we can, as much as possible, preserve this. I really appreciate that because, when I was kind of advocating for the dual language immersion policy and plan for scaling it up, because it's going to help everybody. That model will help everyone, those who speak Spanish at home or another non-English speaking native, and also English speaking. So it's going to lift everybody up. You have close to 7,300 or so English language learners in our district, one of the highest among all the 200 school districts. So when their percentage goes up in third grade reading, it's going to lift the whole, that wave will lift everybody up in our district. And same thing with CTEC, which has got a very good track record of producing excellent results. So I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that went in. And it is, the way I see it, it's going to help everybody. And so this is appreciated. I really appreciate it because partly I was kind of concerned and worried, what would it do? But this approach, even though it's painful, it's difficult, but at least it'll get our focus back on reading and math and science and education. And also during the previous discussions, we discussed about what would it take to at least maintain some safety and educational focus back in our schools. So it is difficult. Hopefully in future, the legislature and others understand the value of it, and
Okay,
we
point
can
of order.
continue to bring it up. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Chandragiri. I do want to just circle back to I think that question that Director Hinojos Presi asked, and Superintendent, you started talking about there's the master's schedules that'll kind of help identify, and I think this is the feeling that many of us, if not all of us, are having, right? If we have the list, we see the numbers, but we're sensing the change. We just don't know what that change is going to actually look and feel like once implemented. Can you share a little bit more about what comes next? So there's the master's schedule. The language on this resolution again says up to, and so this is the maximum reduction that we would be approving if passed. What else do we need to know at this point?
About the process?
About the process. Or what more can you share with us right now around what comes next?
The summary materials that we've provided to you all and to the public very accurately represent what the reductions, if passed, will look like. And I want to be clear about that because it is true that we will respond to the real enrollment data as we start building it into master schedules in the next 2 weeks. But that won't fundamentally change the reduction package. And it will address cohort issues, it'll address surprises, if there are, more third graders in a class than we expected, if there are more or fewer kids who need a certain math class, it will address those sorts of issues. It won't address the fundamental pain of this absolutely dreadful reduction. We don't have a choice to avoid this anymore. And I just want to clarify that because I do believe in being as clear as possible, even when it doesn't feel good. The second question is about the process, and I'll be a little more detailed, and then if anyone has more questions, please ask. The timing of tonight matters because if passed, what it enables us to do is give our school leaders approximately a week and a half to take the information for their school and begin building and testing schedules. And most of us don't have the privilege or responsibility of seeing how complex building a school schedule it is. It is very complicated with so many factors involved. It's about certifications and class sizes. It's about sections. It's about building an efficient schedule, but also a generous and thoughtful schedule that works for everyone involved. It is very complicated, and it matters greatly. It is the testing ground for the assumptions that are built into this reduction recommendation. We'll get information back from every single school leader. Our 2 deputy superintendents are in touch with, I would say, bordering on virtually each leader every week at this point, checking in. How is it going? What are you seeing? When we get information back from that, we will know whether or not the work that we did in the background to build these assumptions held. And if it doesn't, we will figure out what we need to do to reduce the size of this reduction to meet the small areas that require attention. Only after that is done do we know the exact size of this reduction in force. Because we can't just use the ceiling that you authorize here. We need to be right to the degree possible. We need to be right to the individual level. Once we have that number, then it starts a process that is controlled almost entirely by contract and statute. And we've been in close contact with our associations. For anyone who has spent time reading the collective bargaining agreements, and I know there are people in this room who do that, there is a really detailed process That detailed process will take a couple of weeks to do at a minimum, which is why we've set May 17th as a really important day in our system. We have to figure out all of this reduction and all of the transitions associated with it in conjunction with our associations in a way that follows the rules and is clear. It needs to be fair, it needs to be equal, and it needs to be criterion-driven. That will take us all the way to the second week in May. Then we have a no-contact day that we will soon be announcing tomorrow, in fact, I believe, which is May 17th. And that's a day where we will have no students in school, although that makes all of us sad, especially this time of year. But here's the reason that day matters. We will have hundreds of staff learning about changes in their life. Some of them will be learning that they do not have a position anymore. Some of them will be learning that they're changing positions or maybe even changing schools or departments. We have to give them space for that news. We set a standard that we would do this with as much humanity as possible to care for the people who are most impacted. And that is the way we can do this best now. After the announcements are made on May 17th, that is at the level of the individual, then we'll be moving into a period where we will start recalling staff based on additional changes. That could be more retirements that we didn't know about, resignations we didn't know about. And so staff will start re-entering the system over the spring. And this is the way we move from this moment of uncertainty to an eventual moment of clarity through a admittedly slow, but also complex and very important process.
Thank you for that. That's helpful in terms of next steps. Yep. Yeah. Student Advisor Papas, jump in.
From my understanding, so the exact number of the positions that would be laid off is dependent on like the scheduling and like how the class sizes and ratios goes.
It is, the last part you said is the most true. It's dependent on ratio. And that is especially at our middle and high schools dependent on the schedule.
Second Vice Chair Carson Cunningham, jump in.
Thank you. So we find ourselves, in an incredibly difficult situation, as all my fellow board members have already stated. There's really a lot that I dislike about being in this position at this moment. I really do not agree with each and every reduction that's been put forth, but I do know that we have to move forward with significant and extremely painful reductions, and that we need to do it now to reduce the pain in our schools for the next school year. I've contemplated this vote for several weeks now. I really don't want anyone to lose their jobs. I want to protect schools and student-facing positions. I've pressed tirelessly on issues and asked for changes in the proposal based on the information that people have shared with me and that people have shared here in this boardroom with all of us and in my numerous discussions with people in the community. I will reluctantly vote in favor of this resolution, but I want to recommend and ask for several things moving forward. Earlier public comment and engagement on key decisions so that we address the issue that's incredibly important to me that was raised in public comment today around the perception that the board just does what the district wants and that our decisions are made ahead of time. This is not okay to me, and I think we all need to do better. Our job as a school board is to push, to provide oversight, and to make informed decisions based on what the public and professionals tell us. Transparency for the public and the entire organization related to admin versus classified versus licensed categories needs to be made available. We've spent a lot of time talking about this issue in bargaining and other discussions, and I think this could easily be cleared up with a clear organizational chart that the public has access to. I'm incredibly grateful to all of you in this room, from our district leadership who've spent months thinking through this and being compassionate, to our brand new superintendent who didn't intend to come into a position where she has to make such difficult decisions, and to my fellow board members who I know are all in a very uncomfortable and upsetting situation. I truly thank you for doing your best in these difficult times, and I think we have to move forward.
Director Hudson?
Thank you so much. I once again, I really appreciate all the feedback from everyone, as it is shared thoughts, which I know that's been touched on as well. It's just awful. It's an awful situation. It's an awful feeling. And as far as what Ashley has said, we have taken oaths to represent the best that we can, and that comes with deep, deep passion. I wish that I could just fix everything and save everything, and I'm sure that many of you feel the same way. It is not difficult, literally speaking, to volunteer at least 40 hours a week doing this, trying to research and ask questions and talk and have all of these discussions that I'm so sorry that you don't all get to see. But you don't always get all the responses for the assurance, having that luxury that we've heard you, that we've had the discussions around what you've shared. I can never thank you enough for all of the voices and the emails and the messaging. It has helped so much. And that's right, that I don't know if we can all say, oh, I fully align with this or that. What I can say is that I will be voting because I believe that we've discussed every decision, and it seems that there is a reason why for each one. It doesn't mean that we can't replace and refill, and I hope as it sees a need. We talked about the future and the adjustments. I've learned that the district has close communications with each school and the principals. And thank you, principals, and all of you staff for having your communities and your hub there and sharing that, because I am faithful that it will be a continued conversation so we can adjust the best that we can. What I do know is that it definitely seems apparent if we cannot pull ourselves together for the mess that we've approached, how are we going to move forward next? Do we go ahead and not agree on any of this at this time? And do we keep declining and possibly not have a district? I can't imagine the discussions and the emotions that we would have at that point. And that is not what I signed up to do. So I just want to say thank you again to literally each and every one of you. Thank you. So that's it, I guess. Community, I was wondering about the communication moving forward, but I'm guessing that we'll have an opportunity because of the public communications. Is that how they'll kind of have the best ability to stay abreast of where we are at as things evolve?
I want to clarify, is your question about if there are any changes between now and the final point on this package, how will people find out?
Yes, as if they seem interested. I know public comment, we'll continue to have our monthly meetings, but do we have something in effect for them that they might be able to continue to feel involved in a part of this? Are we having more?
Well, we'll continue to communicate in all the ways we know how, both with our staff directly and with our community as well. The next steps in the process are ones that are going to largely have to happen behind the scenes because they are extremely technical in nature. This is the scheduling and the testing process I was talking about a moment ago. At the conclusion of that, and as the details of this reduction in force are finalized, we will have a chance to share any changes publicly. But I do want to just emphasize again that those would be adjustments to respond to ratio or anything else that was unexpected in enrollment or in course registration, not whole changes that would surprise or should surprise anyone at this dais or in this room.
Yeah, Vice Chair Richardson.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to say that all of our staff at every level in our district is important. There's no one group that's more important than another. We need all of us to do this work and to make sure that our students get the academic excellence that they deserve to have. This is not a Salem-Keizer problem. Our superintendent, nobody on this board, nobody on the leadership team, none of the staff in this district caused this problem. We've heard our superintendent say what part of the problem is. We were surviving and were able to do some of the great things we did because we got additional government funding. We needed that funding, and we still need that funding. The pandemic may be over, but all of the things that our students and our parents and our staff are dealing with still exist. And our governor knows it. And that's the reason she has several committees reimagining what school districts look like. Our superintendent, new to this state, was brave enough to speak out and say that the funding formula is outdated and does not fund our schools. We as a school board have to be prudent. We cannot allow our district to go bankrupt. And yes, it's painful to see people lose their jobs. But it is not our fault. We have to do what we have to do to keep our school doors open for our students. And I'm praying that we find solutions, the state finds solutions, and they give us money sooner so that we can recall and get all of this excellent staff that we have back doing the great jobs that you all are doing. We appreciate each and every one of you. And no, this is not easy for anybody, but we have to do what we have to do to keep the doors open and continue to look for ways to bring you back. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just wanted to restate that the proposals, the coming changes are not about individuals, and I think that's what feels so hard because many of us are connected to people within our schools, within our community, and it's hard to not see and not feel, not sense how this is going to impact people. And at on the other end, right, it's our, as we've stated many times, our fiscal fiduciary responsibility. And I said yesterday, it is not why I did not choose to serve, to be in this place. And it feels really hard, it feels really heavy. But I do hold on to hope that we will be able to make systemic change in terms of our education funding, and that we can do that at the state level, that we can do that as community level, that we can do that across our Oregon constituency to really center the livelihood, the education, the quality education of our children, and supports for families as well. I mean, we heard a lot about behavioral, mental health, healthcare. We know that all of these systems impact the experiences of children and families within our schools and systems. So the fight continues, and it's not over, but again, just want to appreciate everyone who has shared their concerns, who has shared their questions, who has shared their feedback around priorities. We are doing our best to move these changes forward, and they won't be perfect. I think it's impossible for us to be able to do it perfectly. It's impossible to be able to do a reduction of amazing people at all. There's no way that we could do this perfectly, and I know that we're trying to be nimble as can be with even the way that our that the resolution is written, and on we go. I don't see hands for additional comments. So I do want to move forward with the vote unless there are final questions or comments. Not seeing any. All those in favor of adopting the resolution number 2023-24-7, reduction in force as presented, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Was that?
We said aye.
Okay, sorry. All right, that is unanimous 7 for support, and the resolution then moves forward.
Chair?
Yes.
Y'all will have to bear with me because I don't know the proper procedure, but I'll have Rebecca help me out if needed. So I think I would like to amend our agenda and add a motion. And I would like to move that if in the 2024-2025 school year, if the district secures additional state school funding, the district prioritize reinstating student-facing positions.
I second that.
All right, we had a second here in the room. So thank you, Director Richardson. So we have a first motion from host Pressey, second Director Carson Cunningham. Do we have discussion on this motion?
Yes.
Director Chandagiri?
Yeah, I want to know, is it procedurally okay? We just voted on a resolution, and after the vote is called and counted to add, is it a new motion? Then do we have to go through a first reading and we have to have a process of
Now we can
getting
hand
an
it
input
over
from the
to,
district?
I can hand it to council for a response.
Sure, so we can do this two ways. You can do a motion to amend the agenda to add a second motion. This is distinct from the first motion on the resolution. So it's not amending the resolution, it's a second motion. And so that is what I understood Director Anoes-Pressey was doing. So we can either split it into two motions, or the board can move forward with essentially a combined motion to amend the agenda to have a second motion related to a priority for next school year.
Thank you. So, yeah, so we're in good shape there. Additional discussion on the motion from Director Anoes Pressey.
I have a clarification,
Go
Chair,
ahead.
if you allow me. So one of the clarification is, if we have a one-time funding, and if we decide to add positions back, how is that going to be any different from one-time ESSER funding, and we added positions and then the ESSER funding didn't continue?
I can
We are in a situation,
restate.
we are at this point in time.
Yeah.
I can restate that the motion is that if additional funding is added to the state school fund and the district is able to receive additional money in the state school fund, our priority upon recalling staff will be student-facing positions.
It's the funding source, Director Chandagiri, where we're not saying that this is not in a case where it would be one-time funding, because we recognize that would put us that wouldn't get us anywhere better. This is more around if there are changes within the next school year with sustainable, essentially some of this unrestricted funding that we would be able to reinstate.
So may I have a modification to this, please? Or a clarification. The state hasn't done a costing study. They are going by current service level based on what 2 years or previously. There is a committee that is sitting and working right now and thinking in terms of costing for future. Governor has called for it. And if this additional funding is anywhere close to what it really costs to educate a child for adequacy and equity, and then if the state commits to sustainable changes based on future years, then it would be helpful to really bring everybody back. Because otherwise the state does not do a costing study, and if they're using a current service level based on, say, 2 years of pre-pandemic, then
Correct.
we
So
are
what we're
not
saying
going to
is-
be able to meet the needs, in my opinion.
Right,
Go
so
ahead, sorry.
we recognize the other pieces of what it would take, which I hear you naming. However, the resolution then moves on to if additional funding is secured, we would move forward with reinstating student-facing positions. So there would be that prioritization of where the reinstatement of time, energy. But Superintendent, do you have additional comments?
Well, first, my comment is, it would be wonderful if this happened. And I will offer one scenario that I think might clarify both sides of this conversation. There is a state fund, I'm sorry, the name right now is escaping me, but it is a state fund managed, and so it's a stabilization fund. It's basically, in effect, it's a rainy day fund that the state maintains for public education. And I think a plausible scenario, I'm going to predict that's going to happen, but if something like this happened, it would likely come from there. It would be a release of that money into the system. In releasing additional stabilization funding into the system through the state school fund, if that is the mechanism that they used it, in effect, what they're doing is increasing state aid, making it a more reliably reoccurring funding source. If they released it through, for example, one-time emergency grants, then we would know that it didn't meet the criteria of the motion as defined, which specifies that it must be a state school fund increase.
Thank you for that. Any additional comments or questions before we move forward to a vote on this amended motion?
It's just a second.
Just a second motion.
Just mine really quick is some gratitude that we're having this discussion so that we're just all, hypersensitive maybe, but it's necessary. And so we don't hit the slope again. So bless both of you for bringing that up. And yes, we agree. Thanks.
All right. We'll go ahead and take a vote on Director Hinojos Presi's second motion. All those in favor of supporting the motion as stated, please raise your hand and state aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, thank you. That was 7 votes of support. Did I get your vote, Director Chandragiri?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Because I did not get a clarity on what motion we are saying.
The
because there
motion
was this
reads-
change.
Do you want to read it? So we'll go ahead and read it and retake the vote. So
The motion is that if in the 2024-2025 school year, if the district secures additional state school funding, the district prioritize reinstating student-facing positions. Although I will definitely defer to Secretary Stovin on my excessive use of the district.
is that clear, Director Chandragiri?
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
All right, so we'll go ahead and all those in favor of supporting the motion as read?
Sorry, one more time though. We did say reoccurring, right? This is what wrote down. If it's not just one time, okay.
Yeah,
Just
so it's
again, okay.
specific to the state school fund. So
Yes,
like that
but
would
not
be
just
like
one-time funding
money
again. Okay.
into our general fund.
Yes, thank
So,
you.
but is this after 24, 25, or it will be like an ongoing basis? It's not entirely clear from the motion.
It's in the 2024-2025 school year.
So what about after that?
After that, that would be based upon the funding allocations from the state legislature that we receive every biennium. Right now, our issue is our reduction in force. We are concerned, well, and I mean, I'm concerned, we've heard lots of concerns from the community about a reduction significantly impacting our student-facing positions. And so my emphasis is that if and when we are able to recall people, that the focus be on student-facing positions and not, I don't know, not saying that this would happen, but we get money and we buy more Chromebooks or something.
Director Ineos-Pressey, would you accept a friendly amendment? Which could we say that if we get sustainable student that the general fund, then we will, rather than limiting it to 24, 25.
I think procedurally, we had a motion and a second and a vote, and so we can't amend the motion any longer.
Yeah. I will say, Director Trenegary, I think just want to reinstate that we have biennium funding, right? And so that's what makes it really difficult. We don't know where we'll be the next biennium, and so I do think it would be slightly, if not very responsible of us to right now amend the motion with that in mind. We'll have to, in this next phase, as we've spoken, continue to advocate at the state level for that additional funding so that come then, we have the adequate funding necessary. But this gives us some room in case there is a change, given that other districts across the state are in a similar situation as us, that if a change is made and there is additional funding into the general fund, we'd be able to reinstate some of the positions and prioritize the student-facing positions, as is really important to all of us. So I just want to respond to the clarity around why the 24-25. All right, I see some head nods, and do you have additional discussion?
No, I was.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and re-vote since we had to reread and clarity, but Director Hudson, did you have a question?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, all those in favor of supporting the second motion as read by Director Ineos-Pressey, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. All right, that's a unanimous 7. Thank you, everyone. All right. Well, that concludes the conversation. We have adopted the resolution. I understand there's still going to be questions. I'm sure our staff are going to have questions. This community is going to continue to have questions. Superintendent, is there anything else you'd like to add as we expect questions to continue to come forward?
Well, we'll share with all of you what we share with our staff and what we'll say again when we're with them in the coming days, which is that there are many, many detailed questions, and we're going to get to them as quickly as we can, starting with the most common questions. It's part of the reason it was really helpful tonight to have some of those common questions brought out into the board meeting. Alongside clarity, I hope that this is a moment where we can pull together as a community and make this a 1-year experience for our school system. There are so many conditions for us to be one of the leading districts and communities, and there is a path, but it will require almost all of us working together. And I know we as a district leadership team are completely committed to whatever it will take to bring the change that we need.
Thank you. Appreciate it. With that, we'll go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting. 7:39.
Thank you.